All right, everybody.
Sherbits in the stream.
Sherbits in the stream. We got a couple of seconds to go, but we're going to cut the music off anyway and get things started here tonight. Welcome to All Things Fantasy Grounds. I am your host, Rob Toohey. I am here with my co-host, Leroon, who I will introduce you to in a second. And also, we will be introducing our special guest for this evening, Kris McDermott from Game Tile Warehouse. And before we get started, I am going to share the screen so that you guys all see what we see. And I am going to do this disclaimer for the show, which is that All Things Fantasy Grounds Talk Show is meant to teach and help. But the cheerbits, Leroon always interrupts me with cheerbits. God damn it. I appreciate it. Let me start that again. All Things Fantasy Grounds Talk Show is meant to teach and help. But the opinions stated by the three of us on tonight's show are not that of Smiteworks USA, LLC, or Fantasy Grounds. Good evening, gentlemen. And Leroon, how are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing good. I'm excited.
All right. Just wanted to say hi to everybody. Welcome back to our show. This is our 11th episode. Is that right?
That's right. Episode 11.
Yeah. So we do have a prize to give out tonight, and we have a special guest. Would you mind telling us announcing the name of our special guest tonight?
Tonight's special guest is none other than Kris McDermott from Game Tile Warehouse. How are you, Kris?
I'm good, guys. How's it going?
Going good.
Doing good.
Kris has donated his time for tonight's show. He is also donating the prize. Here is his website, Game Tile Warehouse, which is gametilewarehouse.com. And he is in a time zone in the future, everybody. It's like noon his time tomorrow, if you're in the United States watching this. So, yeah, it's always cool to have a guest from the future. So we're going to jump right in. Kris, why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do and what's going on with you?
Okay, sure, Rob. My name's Kris, from Australia. Started getting into making digital maps about 2 years ago, and I stuck with it, and I haven't stopped, and so far I've made hundreds of them and turned my attention to all kinds of RPG stuff because, you know, I want to play, and it's sort of haven't really had time to do it before, and I'm just starting to get into it. And so Fantasy Grounds College is really cool for me. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that. And for those of you that don't know, Kris did just complete a Kickstarter. He's done actually several Kickstarters, but he just created the Meanders 3 Kickstarter, which I will attempt to bring up here and see if we can show everybody that. Just successfully completed funding, and it is for a set of his maps that all connect together, which I'll let him explain go into more detail about that. He blew his goal out of the water. He wanted to get 750 Australian dollars, and he almost got 5,000. So very successful Kickstarter, and he plans to do many more Kickstarters in the future, I'm sure. And Kris, do you want to talk a little bit about that specific Kickstarter, or even mention Kickstarters that you've done before that you're thinking about doing in the future?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I was driving a forklift, and when I put my maps up on Kickstarter, I wasn't really sure how to go. 2 years later, I'm on my 18th Kickstarter, and I've tried my hand at all sorts of things. I've made digital coin programs. I've made tokens, tiles, but my biggest seller and greatest love, I think, is the Meanders range, which are like maps, really big maps, and they act like big dungeon tiles so that they interlock, and you can create potentially endless sprawling pathways for your adventurers to explore. And the idea is that any meander, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, or any other type, will match up with any other meander. So you can cover your table, whether it's real, you can print them, or your virtual tabletop if you've got the memory, with all kinds of stuff really quickly. And so you don't have to mess around organizing 6 by 6 inch tiles, because that can take a while. If you're a DM, you just want to have something that's ready to go. And so the idea of meanders is that eventually there'll be 1,000 or so in the range. And these aren't small, they're like 27 by 18 inches each. But for the Fantasy Grounds program, there's a smaller range, and that fits perfectly with the Fantasy Grounds limitations, which is awesome. And every meander has 5 types. So you get the really big type in the pack, and you also get the really small type. So whether you're doing printouts or you're doing virtual tabletop, you're always going to have what you need. There's also gridded versions. So there's hex and 1-inch square. So the idea is that each meander gives you a toolkit that allows you to choose which map you need and also which type of map you need for your game.
Yeah, that is. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I can be done if you like.
No. I hope you go on forever, but I just, as soon as you pause, I'm going to jump in. But yeah, if you have more to say, please.
Okay, yeah, sure, man. So Meanders 3 was a big success. Each year I try and put up a new series or 3. This time I'm trying to get out about 200 maps this year. I've done 80 so far. Dungeons, Dwarves, and Dragons was pretty epic for me. It's probably one of the most used maps in RPG. You know, you always need dungeons, you always need something for dragons, and you need something for dwarves. But I just found there wasn't a huge amount out there. So I'm really glad that people liked what I did, and I really enjoyed doing it. And of course, I will do more. The next installment of M3 will be Magic, Murder, and Mayhem. And
nice.
I just finished my last map for the last campaign, so I'll be starting on those soon.
Very cool. And I'm showing here on the screen how an example of how these maps connect. And as Kris said, you can print these out if you're using them, for IRL games, face-to-face games in your kitchen table. And he's also got them in digital format. So for Fantasy Grounds users, you can get these, and then if you have your characters on a map, you can create pathways and put them in all different types of mixing and matching formats, and it's really super cool. So, and that's just an example of the Meanders 3 Kickstarter, not to mention what Kris has on all of his other stuff available on his website. But as it so happens, Kris will have a product in the Fantasy Grounds store on the Smiteworks website that we actually have here that we're going to show you right now. We're going to show you guys a preview of this, and it's called Venmire Woods. And it'll be available soon. As a matter of fact, it's already in the process of being put into the Smiteworks store. And for those of you that are Smiteworks user, you know that you can get that material on Steam as well. And we're waiting for Steam to approve that. And I've developed many things for Smiteworks, and I've turned in stuff that's been on the site in 2 days, and I've turned in stuff that's taken 34 days. So we're patiently waiting for that to show up in there. It could be any time now. But this is what it looks like. It's got a nice thumbnail thing for the maps so that you can open it up and look at all of them. And then when you want to choose one of these, I think 22 maps, isn't that right? 22? Yeah. You can just click on the pin and open up the map. And the one I wanted to look at was this one here. I already minimized it. This one right here. And so we're gonna use this map tonight for the examples of when we go over like what to do on the maps and all the different things we want to show people about how to work maps and stuff. But we thought this would be a great example to show and also give people a sneak peek of your product that's coming out, Kris, which I'm super excited about myself. And I know Leroon is too.
Well, yeah.
Cool. So If you want to say anything specific about this product, Kris, you sure can before we jump into all of our instruction here on how to work maps and stuff. Did you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, what was the thought process in this little part here?
If you're not using your push to talk, Kris, we can't hear you.
Yep.
This is a collaboration between me and Aaron Leyrun, and we basically used my skills as a mapper and his skills as a module maker to put this together. So this is just another thing that Fantasy Grounds College is doing to expand what's available for players, and I was really happy to be a part of it.
Cool, and it does look
Cool.
awesome. I'm excited to use these maps, and they're really well done, of course. So let's get into some of these subject points that we talked about. Now, Leyrun, did you want to talk a little bit about donations to FCGC and community involvement before we start that?
Sure. So I've been trying to get Kris to check out Fantasy Grounds since what, about October, I think, maybe. I went to his website. It was referred to me by one of the FGC staff members that we had early on, and his name is Oak, and he's still a member. He's just not as active anymore. And I went over to Kris's website, and I believe it was Meanders 2 that was going, and I purchased a handful of them, and they were really reasonable. I mean, it's like $1 a piece. It was the pricing. I mean, you just can't beat that. So I went over there and I bought some of those, and I bought both the fantasy and some of the sci-fi. And Kris had noticed that I doubled up because I was a dummy. I wasn't paying attention to what I was clicking on, and I doubled up on some of the maps. And within 12 hours, he contacted me and he said, "Hey, I noticed that you purchased one a couple times. I can either refund you or, I could recommend that you get one of these other maps instead." So I was really happy with that. I thought that was good customer service. So right there, that kind of sold me on the whole thing. And after that, I kind of invited him to our community, and he was still busy with the campaign, and he wasn't sure if he was going to go that direction or what direction he was going to go. But I believe he was playing a different virtual tabletop, and he had, the campaign in mind. So I didn't hear from him for a while. And eventually, I just kind of kept track of him through the Kickstarters. And I've been inviting him to the college, and he finally broke down and said, "Yeah, I'll check it out." And he did. And here we are. So that's my my story on that. And I asked Kris if he could donate some of his maps for teaching in the college. And he said, "Yeah, no problem, man." And so when he said that, I was really inclined to invest in the Meanders. So I went ahead and did a deal with him and said, "Okay, I want to do this, this, and that." But I was doing it for myself for the Map Meanders 3. So then he followed suit and said, "Well, if you're only going to use these for teaching, you can go ahead and do that too." So if I have any maps that are scaled for Fantasy Grounds, he has no problem with me utilizing them to teach. And that's what he's done for us. So I really appreciate that a lot, Kris.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's a good project.
That's super cool that that all came together that way. And yeah, we've heard many stories in dealing with people in and out of the Fantasy Grounds community. A lot of times that stuff happens. You meet people, you start talking to them, and then stuff comes together and ideas swap, between parties, and a lot of good stuff happens. So that's awesome. So thanks for that. We're going to jump into some instruction now as far as maps themselves. So if you buy maps in a module, or if they're in a module, that's very easy because you're going to open your library and stuff's going to be in here under images and maps. You'll see the stuff in there. But if you want to have your own maps, or if you're downloading a map from Google Images or something, and you created your own and you want to put them into the game, then you want to go to your Fantasy Grounds folder, wherever that is. So on a Windows PC, it's going to be users, your name, app data, roaming, Fantasy Grounds, and then you can have a maps folder. If you're in Steam, it's going to be whatever path you chose for that. So you can just dump these maps in a maps folder, and then you'll have them available to you. So if you want to bring any into a specific campaign, then you would copy it from your maps folder, bring it into a campaign, let's say I want to do it in, well, All Things Fantasy Grounds campaign. We'll just do that. Oh, I didn't copy one, did I? So that was bad of me. So I'm going to copy this dock map. I just pick one at random, copy it, come over here, and it will update live. So All Things Fantasy Grounds is the campaign that I have open. If I drop this into my images folder, paste is what I'm looking for. Then if I go back here and open images, you'd think I'd never use Fantasy Grounds. Here we go. And there it is right there. Oops, I'm sorry, that's not it. What mistake have I made, Leroon?
It is possible that it was not put in the correct campaign folder,
Oh,
or if
that is exactly what happened. I made the mistake of opening the wrong campaign. So let's fix that. Let's take this dock and cut it, and let's go put it in the right campaign, which I accidentally opened instead Test with No Extensions, which is why those 3 maps are there. So if I paste it in, now it'll be here. There it is. You saw it pop up.
Yep.
So there it is. So that's how to do that. If you guys want to put any maps that you get yourself, that's how you can drop them into your campaign. So you can literally use any map for Fantasy Grounds that you want, and it's really easy to do. Okay, moving right along. So sizing. I'll let you two talk about sizing. I'll follow with you if you want to give examples in Fantasy Grounds. I'll do them. But if you guys want to talk about sizing, I'll let you two cover that.
Sure. All I know is that when I first started purchasing maps, I just immediately dumped them into Fantasy Grounds.
Cheerbits in the stream. Thanks for the cheerbits.
And I had no idea that there was any sort of limitations. I obviously didn't seek for advice or help or any kind of instruction. But what I found is that my game was either crashing or getting slow. So I did a little bit more research, went on the forums, looked around, started playing around with the maps in Photoshop or GIMP. And then I found that there actually was an acceptable range for maps. So for my experience with maps, if you want a huge map, I think 2048 by 2048 is as long or as big as you're going to go in Fantasy Grounds. I think that is the actual max dimension for both horizontal and vertical. So what I do is I get all my maps first. I arrange them by orientation. So I have a map folder that has all square maps. And then I have a folder that has vertical, and then I have a map folder that has horizontal. And what I do is I'll take GIMP or a program like that and run a batch convert on each one of those folders, and I will resize and also keep the proportions the same. And then I will go ahead and run the batch file, and it will resize all those maps based on what orientation they are. So you always want to resize the map from the longest side. Now, if it truly is a square, that won't matter as much. But if it's a horizontal map, you need to size it from the longest side. If it's vertical, same thing. So that's how I organize the maps. And then if you just want a battle map, 1024, maybe a little bigger, would be a good size to start with. And then, Rob, what's the dimensional call out for handouts, even though those are not maps?
So when you're doing graphics for Fantasy Grounds, if you're doing official modules like I do, they have limits. They want images to be no more than 700 pixels tall and no more than 1,000 wide. And if you're doing maps, they want the limit to be, like you said, 2048 on a side, whether it's bottom or top, up or down or X or Y, whatever you want to call it. So like I just, as you were talking, I brought up this map. This is from Princes of the Apocalypse. It's the Howling Caves, and it's huge. So you see that the map, if you have it on its regular size, it's bigger than the screen. And
wow.
And I brought that up as an example because Chris's map that we were using, that we will use also, is nicely shaped. It's very nicely shaped for Fantasy Grounds, but I want to be able to show people how they can shrink down a map and make it usable when it goes off the screen and stuff. So,
Right.
So let's. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Chris, what is the recommended file size again in the format?
I think it's under 2 megabyte. Otherwise, if you have too many maps open, or you've got all these other things unloaded, then it just starts to wear down the limitations and it slows everything down and causes problems.
Right. How many pixels is it? Is it 60, 70? What was the pixels per inch and the file size? You said 2 megs?
Yeah, I think it's under 2 meg and 50 pixels.
Okay.
Right.
And it's JPEGs, right?
Yeah, JPEGs.
Okay.
Yeah, 50 pixels per inch is the standard to use for maps. Also, that's the same as 5 feet on the map. So each one of these squares should be 50 pixels. And sometimes they're not 50, but that's the standard to use if you can. Also, just a quick note for everybody watching: we did hear Doug Davison, the president and co-owner of Smiteworks Fantasy Grounds, say that coming down the way very soon is 64-bit integration. So when you open up all these maps and all these modules and it kind of slows everything down, that's going to go away pretty soon, which is pretty cool. There's no date on that, but it is very soon. They are testing it now, and they're going to roll it out. And so that nothing will change in Fantasy Grounds, operations wise. You'll just notice that everything works better, and instead of being 32-bit, it'll be 64-bit. So that's pretty cool.
He said something about isometric too in one of his shows.
Oh yeah, isometric. Yeah, there you can kind of do. Gwydion did a video actually on that. You guys can go to Gwydion's YouTube channel and check out. He did an isometric map thing, and the way you can make that work in Fantasy Grounds now. I'm sure when Unity comes out and when they do some more updates, they'll have isometric stuff built in. But you can actually make it work now if you do it a certain way, and it's kind of cool. But that's a whole different subject. Yeah. So we talked about sizing. So yeah, so let's go through. These might be a little bit out of order, but let's go through and show people some of the map functionality. So the first one I want to do is show how you can resize maps. So if you have a big map like this and you want to get it all the way on your screen, you can right click on the map anywhere and you're going to get a radial menu, and there's all kinds of stuff. And anybody that's used Fantasy Grounds has seen all this stuff, but you might not have actually dove into what each of these things do. So the first one on the very right hand side here is resize, and if you left click on that, it's going to give you a bunch of choices. You can do small size, which will do that, shrink it all the way down. You can right click, choose that, choose original size, which will make it the size that it was before I did anything to it. You can then, let me just resize the window here so you guys can see it, and I'll show you the little trick that I'm using that I haven't explained yet. I'll tell you how to do that, but the reason I did that was to show you this. So you can resize, adjust vertically, which means it'll take it'll take the wideness and leave that and then fill in the map vertically. And then the opposite of that is if I do adjust horizontally, it'll take the up and down and leave that, and it'll make the map as wide as it should be based on encompassing the whole thing. So there's different ways you can manipulate that to resize your maps. Now if you want to do it manually, you can hold the control key. Now if I hold down control and drag inside the map, it'll allow me to manipulate that outer right edge and bottom edge just like that. The difference between holding control and dragging and holding the drag of the little yellow thing in the bottom right is that does it inside the map. So the bottom right thing is inside the map, and holding control is the map itself, how big you want the box to be. We're going to come back to layers. Drawing, no one ever does this anymore, but you can use a drawing tool to actually draw on the map. And when everybody gets Fantasy Grounds for the first time, and they've never seen that before, they always draw a penis, and then it's over, and then they never do it again. And you can erase stuff and clear stuff and go out of drawing mode. So I'm going to erase the scribbling that I did there. And then I'm going to go out of the drawing mode. What else you can do? You can do selection modes. We'll get back to that as well. Now sharing is important because as a DM, if you click on the head for sharing, you can share the maps to all the players connected to your table. So if you do the preload image web, that will load the images to the players, but the map won't appear on their screen. And the reason you would ever want to do that is so that Fantasy Grounds is loading that in the background and taking up the bandwidth and getting it all shared out, so that when you do share it, rather than players having to wait, it'll just pop up instantly on their screen if it's already preloaded. And then here's the regular way of sharing it. You can also sync client view. So if I click on this arrow sync client view thing, then the players' maps, each of their machines, will adjust the map to view exactly what I view on mine. So if someone gets lost or someone's way down in the corner on the map and you want them to get back, you can just do that. Unfortunately, that's going to do that for all the players. So it's going to kind of zap everybody's map. And then you can also lock it. So we'll get into shading here in a bit. But when you lock a map, then players who see the map won't be able to move it. They won't be able to do this, which is kind of cool, because if you maybe you don't have it shaded, but you definitely don't want them to see that water down there, then you can go to share and lock the map, and then they won't be able to move it.
Cheer bits, cool. Cheer bits in the stream. Thanks for the cheer bits.
So then there's pointers, and we kind of covered this, I think, in another video, but just real quick, there's different types of pointers you can make on a map, and that is, yeah, here I said I was going to use Chris's for an example, and I didn't do it, did I? So let's get rid of that. Here we go. You can do a line, a square, a circle, or a cone, and I'm not going to get too heavy into that, but just as an example, let's say I want to draw a cone, and I'll real quick throw a couple people from the tracker onto the map. Whoops, I went out of order. I didn't grid it, which is what we're going to get to. So maybe we'll do that first. So we will do gridding. So down here is the layers, because it gets kind of crazy. The navigator is the same as, whoops, what happened? What is the navigator, Leroon?
It's the similar thing with that corner, but you're using it in the center. So if you drag that around.
And I never use that, actually. I totally never use the navigator. I use the thing that's down here. Okay, so enable mask obviously puts the mask on, and then you can unmask things for your players to see, like that.
Can you show us how to freehand it?
Yes, I can.
The mask.
Yes, if you and by the way, there's usually commands that are in the upper left portion of the map right here. If you don't see those, that's just because you have to unlock the map, and then they'll appear like that. But freehand, if you hold shift, you can left drag around, and when you let go, it'll make shapes. So maybe I only want to show the around the rocks like that, or whatever it is I'm doing. That's you get the idea there. And then if you hold control, you can reshade the map. So say I didn't want to show them that. Let me reshade that. So control will do reshade, and then if you just don't do anything, you can draw a square to unmask like that. So yeah, so we're gonna go here now. Whoops, sorry, went to the wrong one. We're gonna go back, and now I'm gonna delete the mask. I'm gonna just take it away, and it asks you to confirm it because it wants to make sure are you really want to do that? Because as soon as you do that, now the players can see everything. Snap to grid on and off, that is for tokens. Now since I don't have a grid on here, that won't work now, but if you have snap to grid on or off, when you drop tokens on the map, they'll click to where the grid is, or they'll just go freely anywhere you put them. So let's put a grid on here. So let's set the grid, and what you do is you left drag and you choose the size of the squares you want. So we talked about 50 pixels to an inch. So let's do that. Let's do 50 pixels. There's the grid. And now if I put the tokens on, put a couple characters down there and the monsters up there. Oops, I guess I put them too far. So that dragon is huge. The Mephit is there, and this is a bear. And so see how no matter where I drop them, they snap nicely to at least a half a grid anywhere. But if I take the snap to grid off, now I can just place them any old place, and they don't care. They'll let you place them anywhere. So we like snap to grid. So let's make sure all those are visible. Okay, now what I was going to do is I was going to show you, what was I showing people and it didn't work? Oh yeah. What was it? Does anybody remember?
Drawing.
Oh, no,
mode.
we did drawing.
No, for the shape.
Selection mode. Yeah, selection mode. So you're going to select tokens. You can do this, and then you can drag tokens. So instead of dragging them one at a time, you can drag groups. So select, I can drag those guys as a group like that. So that's what that's for. And you got to be careful, because you see that if I click on the wrong thing, I move the whole map, and so it kind of takes a little bit getting used to for that. And then the next thing, whoops, I keep going to the wrong one. There's a lot of stuff to do here. The targeting one is, I never ever use that, but let's try this. So if I'm on San Mika's turn, I think I can click on the targeting mode and, well, Layroon, do you know how to use that? I've never used it.
To target, yeah, you can select targets, but you have to have, yeah, there you go. So just highlight all the targets that you want to put in that group. So group them together, and that basically creates target group.
Okay, so I choose token target mode.
And you're on San, right?
Yep.
Okay. You technically should be able to select all the bad guys over there as a group, and they should all end up being in her target field.
Yeah, see, do you have to hold, yeah, see, well, okay, so Rob needs to learn how to use this, and maybe don't have a show about it until he knows how to do it, because I've never ever used that, to be honest with you. Maybe somebody in the chat might be able to type how we do that, so we'll come back to that. But there's nothing I can do here to figure out what that's for, so we'll come back to that. Kris, you don't know, do you?
Sorry, man. I haven't gotten to that.
All right. So good. I'm glad that I've been using Fantasy Grounds like every single day for over 2 years, and I literally learn something new every day. So that is something that I've never used and didn't know what it's for, and I assumed I could figure it out right here, but evidently I was wrong about that. So that's kind of funny. So let's see. We did this, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did that. This is just to minimize it. So if a map is in your way, rather than closing it and then having to search for it again, you can just minimize it, and it'll go to one of these things, and you can kind of put that, okay, I'm going to put that right there. And that way you can remember to come back to it. All you got to do is click on it, and it comes back. So that's really cool and handy sometimes. And then this right here will actually close the window. So if I click on that, it just goes away. So we want to get that back, which was, which one was it? Was it this one? Yeah, it was this one. Boom, right there. So the other things to talk about up here, besides the masking mode, the drawing, and the erase, these are just other ways to get that. The grid, let me remove that mask. The grid is there, and if you draw a grid and it's slightly off, like maybe I want this line to be on the edge of the rocks, I can actually move that over, and maybe it's too low or too high. And also the grid size, maybe it's too small or big, so you can make the grid sizes bigger, you can go smaller, and so you can manipulate that stuff any different way. And then these targeting things, so I'm on San right here in the combat tracker. If I click on target all enemy units, it's going to put in the combat tracker all 3 monsters, and if I hover over her, you'll see that I have them all targeted. The reverse of that is to click the reticle with the line through it, which is clear targets, which if I click on that, you'll see that the targets were cleared there, and if I hover over her, she no longer has targets. And I'm going to move her down here, and this one here is target friendly units. So that would be for like if you're going to bless or cure somebody and you want to target the whole party. Now I only have one I only have one party member, but if I were to, example, be crazy and change this adult dragon into a friendly creature and then do target all friendlies, now you see that both of them are targeted. So
Right.
we made friends with the dragon, just that easy. That's all you have to do. If you're ever role playing with an adult dragon, just tell the DM, I want you to click on that helmet and turn him green, and then he's your friend. And that's all you have to do. Tell him Rob 2 he said so. This one here is target mode, which if you click on it, then you can use it to, bam, I want to target that guy. That should have worked. Perhaps I also don't know how to use target mode. Any ideas with that, Leroon?
What's that? Now you want to target with the target mode up above. So that just toggles between that, and with a free hand, you would hit shift and draw around the targets.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
snap. Okay, the reason it did that is because I had that one highlighted, which I did by mistake.
But that's kind of how that works. Yep.
Okay, let's clear everything. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, that's cool. They all targeted each other. That's crazy. So yeah, if there was ever a reason you wanted all monsters to attack each other simultaneously or some craziness, you could do that. That's that's
big
two things.
Battle or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's two things I've learned today that I didn't even know existed. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, so I think we did all this, we did everything on the radio menu, and I think we covered everything there.
Real quick, Rob.
Yep.
If you're using the drawing tool, I found it's not very helpful, but if you hold shift, it allows you to draw a straight line. I found that's pretty good for boundaries and marking walls.
Oh, wow, that is cool. So yeah, if I hold shift, it only allows the line to be straight. That is very cool. Nope, that's the third thing I didn't even know. See, I'm trying to make it all crazy, but it's only a straight line. Now, if I let go of shift, then I can get crazy. That's nice. I had no idea.
Very cool.
You can lock that drawing. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Erase it. There we go. Erase the whole thing. Very good. Thanks for that, Chris. I had no idea. Here we're doing a show about teaching people, and I already learned 3 things. So very good. Let's see. We did the sharing. I think we pretty much covered pixel size we talked about, masking we talked about, targeting we talked about, grid we talked about, navigation we talked about. And
well, we didn't talk about the prizes yet.
No, we didn't. Let's do a prize right now. Let's give away a prize right this second. As a matter of fact,
let's show them what it is.
The prize, yes, I'll start the prize because it takes 5 minutes, and then I'll show you guys what it is. So if you want to win the prize, we're going to do a keyword raffle, and the keyword is GTW, which stands for Game Tile Warehouse. Instructions are in the chat, and this prize, Chris has saw fit to donate to us, which is the import and play pre-sized for Fantasy Grounds maps. There's 10 maps. There is the castle, there's the ice, the forest, the mountains, the Underdark, the village, the town, the mines, the jungle, and the desert. So this is a map pack that he has on his website that everyone can buy. If you go to GameTileWarehouse.com, you guys can buy this, but anyone that enters the contest right now will be able to win that courtesy of Chris and his website, Game Tile Warehouse. And then I don't have a button for the applause effects to come on. Yay! Oh wait, I do. I just didn't have it ready. I could have done that. That would have been funny. I'm gonna have to remember that for the future. So yeah, so guys, if you want to get in there, just type exclamation GTW in the chat, and we've already got a few people entering for that drawing. So when the counter goes down in the next 4 minutes, we will pick that out. And the last thing we want to make sure we cover, but I think, Chris, you already talked about it, which is the Meanderverse. I don't know that you used the word Meanderverse, but you want to remind people what exactly the Meanderverse is and will be?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I noticed when I was looking into what maps were available is that there are a lot of people doing maps, but there are a lot of people that weren't doing a lot of maps in their series. So I guess one of my niches in order to stand out was to commit to making a lot of maps that would all work together. And when I say a lot, I mean like 1,000. And so far, I've done 375 of these giant maps. And the aim is to be able to produce a series called the Meanderverse, where any meander map you need, whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, modern, zombie, superhero, will eventually be available in the series.
That's fantastic. That is going to be super cool. And so if you guys want to get on the Game Tile Warehouse newsletter, I highly suggest going to their website, which is, again, GameTileWarehouse.com, and sign up for the newsletter so that you can keep informed of how the progress is coming on the Meanderverse, and get yourself into any number up to 1,000 of these maps that you guys will be able to use and interlock with your games. And I just can't recommend it enough, and I know Lame Rune's a big fan as well. So seems pretty cool. Let's check the status. $1, right? What are you going to do?
Most maps are $1.
$1. What are you going to do? You can't beat it. Have there been any questions in the chat? Does anybody have any questions about?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well let's handle a couple of those.
So Boffrin's asking about post-apocalypse maps, maybe in the future.
Yep, they're definitely on the radar. I've got a huge list that I'm working through. The main focus at the moment is to flesh out the fantasy, because they're probably the most popular, and then I'll turn my attention to post-apocalyptic and all the other ones.
Nice.
Awesome.
Wow, we got quite a few people signed up this time. Normally, it's not as many people.
Normally, it's not as many because I'm giving away something I did on the DM's Guild. Nobody cares. But this is a cool thing. Yeah, we got quite the audience. I think we have 30 people in the chat, so that's pretty good.
So how are we going to handle divvying out the prize? How does that work, guys?
Well, let's do 2 of them.
Oh,
wow,
snap!
2.
It has just gone up a level, everybody. When we will get those names, and then I'll work with the people that win. I'll have them PM me in Discord, and I'll get with Chris and have them send you their email, or get in contact with Chris to get a code, or however it works that they can get a hold of these prizes. So that's 2 we're going to give away, everybody. I will draw 2 winners when the clock runs out in 20 seconds. So you got a last-ditch chance to type !GTW if you would like to have this very prize right here, which I just went away from the link. Why did I do that? Oh my God, so sad. So sad. I was digging around to try to find what he had said about the Meanderverse. That's why I was doing that. Here it is.
And also, please, people, don't rejoin the, if you've already won these maps or you already have them, I mean, give the opportunity to somebody else. That'd be great.
All right, so I think we're done. The timer's run out. We got 14 people entered, so I'm going to draw a couple winners here. First winner, congratulations, goes to Sergeant Catharn. He's won stuff before on the show. So congrats to Sergeant Catharn. And I'm going to actually quickly, before I draw the second winner, just going to make a quick note here so we don't lose anything in case something happens. Sergeant Catharn put his name there. And now I will draw a second winner. Lord Havoc. Congratulations to Lord Havoc. You are the winner of the second one. Lord Havoc, not a follower. Boo! Boo, Lord Havoc. Congratulations, and boo, sir. You are not a follower. Please hit that follow button. But we will, both of you, I'm going to have both of you please PM me in Discord. And then after the show, I will put you in touch with Chris, and we will figure out how to get you your prizes. And I'm going to put, in the chat, I'm going to put the Discord link there. So if you are not a member of my Discord, just go ahead and come on in, PM me in Discord, and say, hey, this is Sergeant Catharn, or this is Lord Havoc, and I won the maps from GTW on the show tonight, and I'll get you guys hooked up. So congrats to those 2 people. That was pretty good. Pretty cool.
Nice.
And I think we've gone through all our curriculum, so we had a nice tight show tonight. Kris, is there anything else you wanted to impart to the audience? Anything coming up in the future? Any secrets you can tell? Anything else you want to say at all?
Yeah, well, I've got a Kickstarter that I'll probably launch in about a month and a half called Magic, Murder, and Mayhem. And that'll be focusing on magical based maps. So I'm thinking like an 8-story wizard's tower, necromantic forest, and mausoleum, portals, and things like that. So that will help flesh out the other side of the RPG fantasy map set that I'm doing. And after that, there'll be more of those. I'm also working on a dice set that is going to be kind of like the ultimate creative box of dice. I'm currently looking for a manufacturer for that.
Ooh.
And in general, the future for what I'm doing is everything I'm doing. I've done coins, I've done tokens, I've done tiles, I've done maps. And the reason I'm doing all of this is because I'm building my own RPG. And Fantasy Grounds is possibly one place where I'd like to learn how to run games and be a DM so that eventually I can bring my game into Fantasy Grounds if I can make it compatible.
Oh, man. That's pretty exciting
Awesome.
right there. Holy crap. I didn't know anything about that. That's awesome. A new RPG possibly that could go for Fantasy Grounds. So there you go, everybody. Even more stuff for Fantasy Grounds. Yeah, that's right. We bring you the secret information here first. At least I just found out about it. I didn't know about it before. So that's awesome. And the dice and everything. That sounds really cool, Kris. Well, do we have any more questions from chat?
I have a question.
Oh, you have a question. Okay, go for it.
Related to the maps, but not so much the Fantasy Grounds, but when you print these maps for real life tabletop games, what's your recommended process, Kris? So when you get them printed and laminated, or what's the deal?
Right. Well, I've actually had quite a few people ask me how to print them because they don't fit onto a standard letter or A4 size. A4 is what we call the standard paper in Australia. And so I actually discovered a program which is free, and it's called Postapocalyptic. And what that does is you import an image, say like a giant map, into it, and it will automatically slice it into the optimal number of pages for you to print and then piece together. So that's the easiest way to do it from your home. And otherwise, I would just recommend you can use Game Crafter, and they'll make like a 6-section folding board for about, I think it's like $20 US. And those are really good quality. I've used them for prototyping. And possibly, I'm not sure what they call the, like your office works or stationary places that you go to get.
Oh yeah,
stuff printed
Office
out.
Depot, and yeah, there's a lot of those here. Yeah, Kinko's even.
Right.
FedEx printing, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'd just recommend taking the file into them and seeing what they can do, because there are a lot of options nowadays. And if you wanted it all in one piece, then taking it to those places is probably the best way to do it. And maybe if you take a couple, you might get a discount. I'm not sure, but they're really large maps, so there's no real easy way to print them. But you can use them for virtual tabletop because they're sized for that. You've got the high resolution if you want to print them. So every meander comes in 5 different variations, and you'll find that whether you want to print it or use it for VTT, you'll be able to.
That's nice.
Cool.
So you're not just getting Fantasy Grounds maps when you buy a normal map pack. You get all different formats for different reasons and variations.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, the one you've given out tonight is specifically for Fantasy Grounds, but all the ones from your Kickstarter, I noticed, the ones that I purchased have tons of, 4 or 5 different maps in there that you could pick from.
Yeah, that's right. So let's say you get the in map, that the roadside in map that Rob was showing earlier. You'd get that is ungridded at its full size at 27 by 18 inch. And then you get it with a 1-inch grid over it, and then a hex grid over it. And then you get a smaller size, which is medium, and then an even smaller size, which is small. And the small size is the one you want to use for Fantasy Grounds. That's 1350 by 900 pixels. It's less than 600 or 500 kilobytes, so it's really, really small. It's perfect for using on that system because you can have even 2-up, which I've seen people do by sizing the maps so that they fit side by side. And when Unity comes out, you'll see that meanders aren't just used by themselves, as you kind of have to on Fantasy Grounds unless you use the really small ones. But when Unity comes out, if there's more memory, it means you'll be able to put more and more meanders next to each other and they'll line up. So the idea is you can fill your table with like even 2 meanders because they'll go back to back, they'll go top to bottom, you match them up. You can even spin them. It all depends how you want to use them. But the idea is that they're just as much versatility in every meander as possible. So it's like each single map is the ultimate tool.
It's awesome. You also make tiles, but the assets, digital assets. I'm really intrigued by that. I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's something I've been working on, is trying to learn how to do that more effectively. I had some up, but I took them down because I wasn't super happy with them. I wanted to do more, and at the moment, maps, creating the basic terrain and stuff is actually what I'm focused on. And as I make each map, it requires me to make different objects, different vectors. So it's a slow process. I've probably got about 2,000 of them, but I've only released a handful. I usually release them with my Kickstarters. But eventually, when I have more time and I have something, when I have a quality that I'm really happy with, because I think the standard out there is really super high. There's no shortage of excellent vectors, man. And I'm really happy with the way my maps are going, but I'd like to work more on my vectors before I release them to the public.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, I like hearing that. I like that you're a little hard on yourself. That makes for better quality, better products. I love it.
Yeah, I'm very hard on myself.
Yeah, most people are their own worst critic, so
yeah, that's true.
Good.
All right, so, very good.
Cool.
Did we have any other questions that we need to answer from people watching the show? I didn't see any myself. So I guess in that case, we will put it to an end. And so I will put up the slides for people to look at while I do the close of the show. But I would like to thank our special guest, Kris McDermott from Game Tile Warehouse. Guys, don't forget to bookmark his website, GameTileWarehouse.com, and go there because he has a lot of fantastic stuff. You can sign up for his newsletter and keep an eye out for his Kickstarters. He's already done 18 different Kickstarters, so there will be more, obviously. And you guys should keep an eye out for that. And also keep your eye on the Sparrow for the Smiteworks store, the Fantasy Grounds store, because and also Steam, because his Fantasy Grounds, the one that we showed you here, will be coming out very soon. It's in the queue right now. So just keep an eye out for that. And again, the name of that is Venmeyer Woods. So that's what you're looking for, and it's got those 22 maps. He also has different tables in here. We didn't even show this. You can roll on a table to get a random map. So if you want to do that, he's got that there for you, and it's just a really cool thing. And I'm pretty excited about having that be in the store for Kris to get his name out there even more than he has. So just want to remind everybody, I'm going to put the things in the chat for people. Remind you guys how to connect with us. You can come to our Discord. I'm going to put the commands right in the chat right now. I think it's right here. Boom. So you can come to our Discord. You can go to our Patreon page. Also, Fantasy Grounds College has a Patreon page. You can subscribe to the channel if you wish. Please follow us. You can donate. You can go to the DMs Guild. and check out the wares we have there. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter as well. Kris has a Twitter handle. Kris, your Twitter handle is what?
That's a good question. If
It's
you go to my website and click on the Twitter icon up the top, you'll be able to get there. But I'm not sure offhand. I don't use it a lot.
All right.
Well, I'll get it real quick because I know it's Kris GTW or something like that. I just had it. As a matter of fact, I'll go to my Twitter because I just sent out a tweet with his Twitter in it. So that's what I'll do. But yeah, you guys can follow him on Twitter. I'll get that for you right here real quick. It is Kris _ GTW 2017. So Kris _ GTW at 2017. And don't forget about Fantasy Grounds College. Leroy, did you real quick want to mention Spring Break and FGCon?
Yep. So we're still in the middle of spring break. It's slowly ramping up. There was a couple games going on yesterday, a couple test games. So there's people testing their products, looking for people to help them develop their games. And also Leroy himself, yes, me, I've been playing in a couple games. I played in a Tua's game last night, and it was a 4-hour one-shot, and it was really fun. I really recommend that you DMs out there try your hand at running a game. And you got all the support in the world in the college, so even if you're not sure of yourself, you can probably grab a few people that'll help you. So run all the games you can, play all the games you can, and if you fill out our questionnaire for the survey for the college, we're going to give out a prize on Easter Sunday, and I'm going to do a live drawing in the college, and Rob's donated something, and I also am going to donate something. So that's coming up at the end of spring break. Then after that, 2 weeks later is FGCon. So technically you can use Fantasy Grounds College spring break to springboard into the FGCon so that you can get your confidence up. But you need to register soon. The cutoff date's coming up. I think it's in about a week or two. And then it'll be people registering for games. So that's the 13th through the 15th of April. And the spring break is started already now in the college, and it ends April 1st, which is Easter Sunday for most of us.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching. Thanks, Kris, for coming and joining us for our show. And I think that was a good one, and we'll put this one in the books. It'll be available on YouTube later for people to watch if they missed it. And on behalf of Kris at Game Tile Warehouse and my co-host Leroy, I'd like to thank everyone for watching tonight. And until we see you next time, good gaming, everyone.